We welcome you back here. Of course, VSiN Super Week, nobody better than the legend there in Vegas and Willie Ramirez to talk about the emergence, merging the old school Vegas with new school Vegas as we welcome you back. Las Vegas Associated Press writer. We're going to get to plenty here with Willie, including the workout for the day. But as we say hi to Willie, you've been there forever. Can you help by painting the picture of old Vegas to where we are now, 6 days out from the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. Always a pleasure. Well, let me just take you back to the 70s. It's real simple. You could stand at the edge of the Caesars Palace fountains, look down to your left, look all the way through the curve where the Mirage, Treasure Island, all that's at Fashion Show Mall. You could see the sands across the street down the way. You can see the Frontier and the Stardust, glimpses of that. Just a lot of easy open space. It took about 7 to 10 minutes with the right green lights to get up and down the strip. And, it was just very nostalgic. There was really nothing like it. I mean, sports books stood alone. The old Castaways, Little Caesars. Remember that big sliding glass door off the backside of Little Caesars. Gene Mayday, one of the original bookmakers, Sonny Reisner. I mean, I think back to those days where, there was maybe 500,000 people in Las Vegas, and it was all just knowing about the casinos, the headliners, the Rat Pack, and the Running Rebels at the Rotunda after that 1977 Final Four team. So, when you fast forward today and just look at the cluster of casinos and resorts and now pro sports, it is absolutely wild to see how they've jigsaw puzzled pieces and elements of what we now know as the skyline.
Well, you mentioned you've seen a ton of things here. Obviously, this has got to be the culmination of the biggest event in Vegas history. But what was kind of the catalyst that helped professional sports land and firmly land into Las Vegas?
Yeah, I'm gonna stand my ground, and I always will, and always have and always will, and say that former Mayor Oscar Goodman is without a doubt the number one catalyst for pro sports. When he was the mayor, he promised several things. He promised to revitalize downtown. It was called the Downtown Revitalization Project. He promised to bring pro sports to Las Vegas. And, he befriended David Stern. He really made a big push back then. The NBA All-Star Game came here. It was a huge hit. There were elements in terms of, just different things that took place off property at night. But we've seen that take place with so many different events, whether it's concerts, prize fights, during conventions, whatever it is. There were a couple of, there were some rowdy times, and the facility, Thomas and Mack, they proved it was not up to par at the time. But Oscar Goodman continued to promise that this was going to be a pro sports town, and it was a viable spot to start looking at. I would say him, and of course the president of the Las Vegas Aviators, Don Logan, who has headed up the AAA franchise that has been the mainstay out of any professional sport that's come to Vegas since the early 80s, 83, 84. And those are guys that have sat on boards. Those are guys who have talked to different, people. I know Don's entrenched in Major League Baseball, but he knows everybody. And if anybody's going to ask questions as to how things are going to get done in Las Vegas, Don Logan's going to be one of the ones that they spoke to. So I say the catalyst in terms of getting the ball rolling was Oscar Goodman. And, a main linchpin has always been Don Logan.
Merging the old with the new, the past with the present. The great Willie Ramirez joins us. Associated Press been covering, Las Vegas sports since the 70s. Is there a moment, you mentioned Tark and the Running Rebs, you mentioned the prize fights. Is there a moment that stands out for you?
There does. Well, wait a minute. I haven't been covering sports since the 70s. I don't want to get that. I don't want to be that old. I appreciate the respect. My first byline was in 1987. And the cover story for the Las Vegas Sentinel Voice was on Mark Wade, and it was that Final Four team. So I was very familiar with and very friendly with those guys: El Hud, Armand Gilliam, Mark Wade, Freddie Banks, Jarvis Bass Knight, that original, the second Final Four team. There are a couple of standout items for me. I think one of the biggest moments for me as a reporter, I was asked this last week as far as just being in town. And I remember Freddie Banks hitting a three-pointer on a Tuesday night at the Thomas and Mack with 18-5 in a standing room only, and the place being absolutely electric, as loud and as electric as a Golden Knights game with the last-second goal or a shootout goal. When Chandler Jones returned that freak play against the Patriots and Allegiant went crazy. I mean, that's how wild Thomas and Mack. I was but I wasn't recovering then. I was in the house when Michael Moore was knocked out by George Foreman. That might have been one of the most thrilling moments where, you don't cheer on press row. And the press members that were in the stands looked at each other and they were high-fiving and hugging each other, tears in some of the old guys' eyes, because here was this completion of this comeback by George Foreman, and he knocks out Michael Moore, who had previously just beat Evander Holyfield, and I was ringside for that fight as well. So a lot of big prize fights in the early 90s for me, but that's one that stands out. The Freddie Banks shot, and then poignant moments just off the playing surface. I remember walking from the courthouse, back to our cars when Donald Mosley and Mills Lane, they eventually shut down the Running Rebels with J.R. Ryder, Everett Gray from going to the Final Four, and they upheld the NC2A's ruling that they wouldn't be able to be in the postseason, even though there was only one or two members from the previous team that was being punished. So things like that stand out in my head.
Well, you have to assume, with the success Vegas has had in hosting conventions and throwing large events, that this city now becomes part of the rotation with Miami and New Orleans, among others, in terms of the Super Bowl every half a dozen years or so. Would you agree with that?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I mean, this is a town that has been – I don't want to downplay the Super Bowl. Obviously, it's one of the biggest events of any category, sports, politics, convention, whatever. But let's not forget that this town has been hosting some of the biggest conventions for decades, right? From CES to just any. Even as like now the UFC Expo or the Mr. Olympia, different things like that. There's different elements in how these conventions. Some are big, some are small, but the LVCVA, Las Vegas events, PR firms around town, veterans that have known how to latch themselves on at the right time for events like this. We're talking about veterans in terms of throwing events. So there's not going to be a stone that's been unturned. This is a playbook, right? This is like just handing over a playbook to a veteran coach, a stat team giving it to a veteran coach, and the veteran coach is Las Vegas as a whole, LVCVA, like I said, so on and so forth with the Las Vegas events and all the power brokers that do this for a living. This is what they're specialized in. And I'm not trying to knock the other cities, Miami, New Orleans, LA. They've learned how to put on Super Bowls. Las Vegas has learned to put on events. And the Super Bowl is something that's an event. It's beyond just the Pro Football Championship. It's an event. It's a week-long event, and Las Vegas specializes in that.
Yeah, Vegas is made for it. Willie Ramirez, do you have the suit picked out for Super Bowl Sunday, and do you have an early lean with the 49ers lane too?
Okay, so here's the deal. I have been in training mode since September, and then once we got past the Raider season and my coverage died down a little bit, my colleague, the main AP writer in town, Mark Anderson, he kind of took the reins, and the Raiders-Broncos was the last home finale since December 12th. I've gone from 212 down to 197. I've had to take 4 suits that had tags still on them, guys. I had to take them to get re-altered and refitted and rebuilt to fit my, I guess, improved body shape. I have a 5th one in which I've worn a couple of times that is going to get thrown in the rotation. So I have 5 suits on deck. I do have the one picked out for the game. The other ones will be interchanged for, tonight, the media night. I've got the Golden Knights tomorrow. I've got Top Rank Boxing Thursday. I've got the game. And then wherever I show up for other events. So I do have I have 4 brand new suits, one that's only been worn twice. And my lean toward the game is a full-blown pushover. I'm not even leaning. I'm totally pushing through the door. I'm kicking the door wide open with the veterans here. The Kansas City Chiefs, I like to win the Super Bowl against the 49ers. I appreciate the 49ers and everything that they've done. I think that they're a much improved team from the previous squad that played the Chiefs. That team didn't really have an impressive non-conference schedule. Their schedule of strength was kind of weak that year. The problem that I have is that 49ers team could have lost to the Packers, maybe should have. Could have lost to the Lions, probably should have. The Chiefs put together, especially behind DVOA, some of the best performance we've seen on the road in Buffalo, on the road in Baltimore. I think that Reed and Mahomes are our new Belichick and Brady, and I just think you can't look past what they know how to do when it comes to being the postseason. I like the Chiefs.
Flex on them, Willie. Going to look sharp in the new suits with the new bod. Appreciate you, Willie Ramirez. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Okay, there he goes. A legend there in Vegas.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.